Welcome to another Sale and Scale Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Dmitry Smirnov, and my co-host, John Ravman.
Hey, everybody.
We have Craig Backus here from DRKM Strategies with us. Craig has over 12 years in digital marketing and is passionate about SEO, Google Ads, and helping businesses grow. Fun fact is he is an award-winning paper boy. He'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a little bit. And he's going to share a little bit more about his journey from the mortgage industry to running a successful marketing agency. It's quite a remarkable story, and his different strategies for PPC management, conversion optimization, and much more is something that we really want to share with everybody. So thank you, Craig, for for being here, and we welcome you to our show.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, and we get to learn a bit more about what you guys do. And I'll be sure to throw in a couple of y'alls and fixins because I am calling you from Fort Worth, Texas today, even though I didn't grow up here. But I said, hey, I've been here 10 years now. I think I should be grandfathered in. So hopefully.
All right. So first off, let's go ahead and start with, can you introduce us and explain to us what the DRKM stands for? Because not everybody's going to know that off the top of their head.
Well, DRKM, what it stands for now is digital results from key marketing strategies.
Okay.
So that's what we decided it came from. So now where it really came from is when my business partner decided to go out on his own. He got with the fellow that he worked with to build websites. And he said, I need a new email. I can't just go around with a Gmail address. He's like, okay, well, here, we'll give you Monty@drkm.net. And drkm.net was for a pediatrician in Florida. It was like Dr. Kimberly Montessori or something like that. And so he used that email for a year, and then I partnered up with him probably the year after he got it started. And by then he's like, well, we'll create a new brand at some point. And yeah, years went by, and we just kind of created the words to go with DRKM strategies. So it still sounds good. Yeah.
That's funny.
Fantastic.
Well, I mean, everybody has different reasoning for their names, and it's quite fun hearing the story because every agency is different. I mean, mine, I thought it was just a smart aleck. So our agency name, I'm not going to mention it now, but our agency came from me thinking I was smart and creating a bunch of, SEO keywords for the company name. Obviously, we rebranded since then, but yeah, everybody's different when they come to their strategies here. So now we put a little bit more thought behind the name.
Right.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know I mentioned that you are an award-winning newspaper boy. Okay, now, not to age you there, but tell us a little bit more about that and a little bit of story behind that.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess, you got to probably be maybe over 45 to even remember getting a newspaper delivered to your house every day. But yeah, back when I was a kid, that was the best way for a young boy to make some money. And so I delivered the afternoon newspaper. It was a Monday through Saturday deal. So I had to come home from school, deliver my newspapers. And then once a week, I had to go collect my, whatever it was, $1.10 from everybody's house. Right. So after that, I think after my second year, I was making sure I didn't have any complaints, and I added some new customers over time. So I was awarded the Newspaper Carrier of the Year for the Herkimer Evening Telegram for 1983. So it does go back a ways. But I've got my picture. The picture in the paper was like a third of a page, and my mother clipped it out and she had it laminated for me, and she gave it to me. I graduated high school, kind of all the press clippings that she did whenever I happened to hit the newspaper from. I think I got in the newspaper once when I was 6 for writing a letter to Santa Claus. So she had that clipping, and then she had this one where I got this trophy, and it was a trophy like this big with a kid with a newspaper in his hand. So
wow,
yeah, it was something.
Oh yeah, well, what I think is interesting about that is, kids today won't have that same kind of novelty of being able to be like, hey, look, I was in the newspaper. Sure, you might make the news, but it's like, Yahoo News, and it lives for a day and then it's gone.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it stays on the internet, but nobody's going to take a look at it second time. Maybe your mom can still print it out, though.
Maybe she could probably. Yeah, I did actually. I Googled it to see, and I can actually order a copy of that and print it poster size and hang it on my wall if I wanted to, but I don't think I'm going to go to that extent. I think the clipping my mom gave me is good.
Very nice. All right. So tell us a little bit more about your background. What started you into digital marketing? I know I had mentioned that you started out in the mortgage industry and then somehow you ended up in marketing, right? So tell us more about that.
Right. So yeah, so when I went to college, the internet wasn't even a thing yet. I guess it probably was in some science circles, but I got my degree in marketing in 1990. So we learned a lot about marketing, but it was more general concepts. But all those things really served me well. So when somebody says, "Hey, does your college mean anything?" It's like, well, it gave me a lot. It gave me an opportunity to do research. I had to write papers. I had to present to the class several times. So it gave me a lot of good experiences that served me well even today. Um, but yeah, there was no internet. So I started out in basically different types of customer service jobs. So my first job was with a mortgage servicing company, and we worked with mortgage companies all over the country. I went from there to a mortgage origination software company. And so kind of on the other side of the process, and in that realm, I was responsible for bringing in third parties where we actually plugged in their services onto our platform. So if you need to order your credit report or a flood determination report, all these various services that you need for a mortgage, I work with them to kind of integrate them into our platform. So it was a lot of account management. There was a certain elements of sales to that. So my career was always around customer service and sales. And so after that company was acquired by an offshore company, you could kind of see the writing on the walls that, well, they're going to be looking to streamline this operation. So I said, what's my plan B going to be? And so I bought into a franchise called Embroid Me. And so they did embroidery, screen printing products, and promotional products. Right. And I managed that for several years up in Detroit. And as I was doing that, that's when Facebook just started going, where businesses could get involved. That's where Google Maps was really starting to come into its own, becoming the default way to finding things. And I knew I was doing well because there was other franchisees in Cincinnati that were complaining that their customers were finding me when they were looking for them. And if you can imagine on a map, Detroit and Cincinnati are quite a bit away from each other. And so that's where I kind of knew I had a flair for doing this. And so my wife got opportunity to come to Texas here about 13 years ago. And so I said, okay, well, let me start. I'm going to help customers with their social media management and email marketing. That's what I thought I would focus my two pieces on. Then as I got going, I realized that you really need to have the center point of the website to start with, and then you can build out these things around it. And so that's where, when I came down here, I met my current business partner, Monty Ramey, and he and I worked together to kind of build a broader array of services that included building websites. And so he has a partner that builds websites old school, where we were just post the HTML to a server, and those work very well. And then in the meantime, I learned how to build websites using WordPress and being able to use different themes and components to make something that looks good and serves it well and then performs well with SEO.
So you got to do everything kind of as it was being shaped in the market, which is, I wish I could say the same. I'm a little bit younger, but it's always interesting to hear that because I know that the websites, just website alone, websites have evolved tremendously from pure HTML to people starting to use WordPress for blogging. Then people figured out, hey, this might work good for something other than just a blog, and boom, 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 and it evolved. Now WordPress is just the standard.
Right. Oh, and I guess just one more point on that. At one point several years ago, we realized that the old school HTML websites weren't working. It wasn't going to work on mobile. So we actually purchased and we repurposed. We had about 8 or 10 websites that we had this separate program that we used just for mobile. And I think we still have 3 or 4 that, many of them we moved over to WordPress so it would be responsive. We still have 3 or 4 of them that just never wanted to. They're just like, oh, it's whatever we got now works fine. So they still have this old school HTML that comes up on desktop, and then they've got this mobile only version that comes up for people that hit that from a mobile phone.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, okay, the evolution of everything going from your desktop computer to mobile and tablets and everything else was in little phases. And at the very beginning, you could not always have like responsive sites, right? So what they did is they would literally create multiple versions of the site in
Hmm.
different screen resolutions, and they're literally almost like different sites itself. And that's how you would see it on the mobile versus desktop versus like a tablet over time. And then now it's evolved to being responsive and optimized automatically. So when you can drag your window, it actually opens and closes. But back in the day, you you made your window smaller, and it wasn't really scaling with it. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
it's quite a nice little interesting piece, especially for the younger crowd. If anybody's listening, your internet wasn't always the same. Okay.
Nope. Nope. The internet,
Right.
the websites took a huge leap forward when they finally came up with the idea to go and use actually a concept from printing called CSS, which is cascading style sheets, and they separate the content from the layout. And once they
Hmm.
could do that, that's when it was like the aha moment in web design. And so, for all those who kind of interested in how all that happened, you can go up and read about it. The CSS in web design, it actually comes from printing, which is kind of weird when you think about it. That print actually holds and transfers over the whole concept went over to the web, and how it all works.
Hmm.
A little,
I did not know that. That's so. There you go.
Well, even your keyboard is inspired by
yeah.
print media as well.
Right.
So it is quite interesting, that's for sure. Um, well, okay, so now let's kind of get into the meat and bones. I know one of the things that you really specialize is in PPC management and basically conversion optimization, right? So let's go ahead and just start diving into that part and tell us a little bit more about, like, number one, how'd you get into PPC? Okay, we don't need to explain what it is. Most people know. Search results is the ads. Okay, now what we want to know though is, okay, anybody can create a PPC ad, but not everybody can create a PPC ad that actually converts. Okay, so if you don't mind, let's go over the components of actually running a successful PPC campaign that actually converts.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, as I kind of learned new things, it's the same process. Somebody came to us one time and said, "Hey, I want to do some Google Ads. Do you know how to do that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't, but I'm sure I can figure it out." So, you just kind of dig in and start figuring it out. Um, and you start small and you just kind of build on it. And yeah, so the Google has really, and even their Google Ads platform has changed dramatically in the last
Mhm.
6 or 7 years. So they've made it so that their ads are really a lot more responsive. It used to be they were very fixed and very restrained in how they would be presented to people. And now you give Google, 20 different ideas, you give them a few different pictures, and they will test which ones do better than others. And so it's all about, making sure that the pieces of data that you give them are relevant to the keywords that you're searching for, right? So it's all about putting all those pieces in place. And then you put that out there to say, okay, here's what I'm looking for. Let click on me. And then to me, where it really makes a big difference is okay, now Google wants to know when there's a conversion. And they have some tools that have gotten a lot better over the years as well to know, okay, when did somebody fill out a form on the website? Or when did they have a phone call that lasted for a certain amount of time? So a few years ago, I started using a third-party tool to do that. And that to me helps to validate, because sometimes you look at Google Analytics and you go, really? What do these numbers mean? I'm kind of skeptical sometimes of what those numbers are. And then some people even say, oh, Google Analytics is garbage. I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think it's good to have some healthy
Well,
skepticism about things.
let's just say they are taking away piece by piece all the relevant data that we want to track on their users, because anything nowadays that is if the user is using Google Chrome, let's say, as their browser, and they're signed into a Gmail account, let's just say that user data, mm, you get very limited information from that visit. Let's just say that. So that's what he's referring to. People saying that it's starting to become garbage, but at the end of the day, Google's just trying to help beef up data protection, data privacy. So you can't fault them. maybe. I don't know. You tell me.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to see. The jury's still out, I think. But
Right.
but yeah, to me, getting that data back so we know, okay, they filled out a form. The form is available now into this call tracking system. The phone calls end up in the same place, and we tend to say, okay, if it's longer than, and you just pick a number, a minute. A lot of times I use 40 seconds because most of my clients are small businesses that are looking to get an appointment. So they're not really selling stuff online. They're have their brochure websites online, and then they want to sell home services, like they want to do carpet cleaning, they want to do HVAC, they want to do concrete coating in the floors in your garage, they want to do screens. We're big in Texas here. We're big on trying to get some shade to stay cool. So there's a big industry with just doing the automated shades where you can just flip a switch and all the shades go down on your patio, and you've got a nice shaded area that you can use a little bit out of the sun. So all those things is important to have, and then Google uses that data, right? So you could actually turn that around. You can send, okay, here's the ones that are forms, and now they've even added it. So now you can say, okay, let's give a value to each of these. So like I worked on it today. I've got 3 conversion types. I've got one where it's a form where they just filled out their name and address on the screen. They've got a phone call that lasts more than 40 seconds. And then my third one is they actually booked an appointment. And so we can actually keep track of that, feed that back to Google. And so I said, okay, well, just to throw some numbers out, let's call, if they fill out a form, let's call that, give it a value of 1. If they give us a phone call that lasts 40 seconds, let's give it a value of 3. And if they book an appointment, let's give that a value of 10. And we're going to send that back to Google so that Google can understand what the relative value is of each of these kinds of conversions, so that they can go find more of the most valuable types of people that are convert to that level.
Yeah. No, and I think that part is really important because, that part is important, but let's just say not everybody has the luxury of setting it up perfectly like that, because not everybody's using CRMs, using all the analytics tools, not using the proper formats, let's say even on their website for this call to actions. So one of the things that I do believe I do want you to dive into is talking about the actual website and the formatting, the setup, what content, what goes into the call to actions, because without that, you have no measurement, right? So if you're just sending people wildly to a homepage, chances are you're not going to convert very well either, right? So like, tell us a little bit more, like, how do you approach the, I guess, the website component of these ad campaigns, right? Because, even in call only ads on Google, you still have a link to your website or to the landing page or wherever else. So tell us a little bit more on what do you like to see, or what do you want to make sure is always there on every single website from both a technical standpoint and from a content standpoint?
So, I mean, one of the most important things to me is to make sure that you've got the phone number is clickable and right toward the top of your page. So that way, when you go on your phone, it's got to be one of the very top things on there. And you want to make sure that that phone can be clicked on to connect with your operators. And then also technically that it can be seen by Google and others so they can do a number swap and use that for tracking purposes. So
let me stop you for 1 second. I want everybody in the audience to notice one key thing that he said there: on mobile. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a reason he said that, and the reason is most search traffic nowadays is actually on mobile phones, especially on the go. You're going through your life, you're at work, whatever else. Most times you're going to be right there on that phone, finding that the shades guy, or finding the patio repair person, or whatever else you need, right? So phone part is very important. So mobile optimization is key. Okay, I'll let you get back to it. Sorry about that.
And you can't, I don't know how many people do. I can actually make a phone call from my desktop. So that, to me, that's relevant, but I don't know how many people would actually do that. So I just always want to.
Headsets, yes. Maybe people with headsets.
Right, yeah. We can call from our desktop, but the main thing is you want to make sure that phone number is there. It's clickable, very easy for people to get to. And I even have it so my brother-in-law is an attorney. We set his up so he's got a persistent little button in the bottom. You click on that and they can either call or text him. because he's a criminal attorney up in Michigan, and so he gets phone calls and texts at all kinds of hours because people do, people get into shenanigans at different times, and so he gets called on to help them out, and having that ability, and basically so right from his website, it connects to his mobile phone, and then he can either get the call or the text and act very quickly on that. So that's important, and I like to always put the form. I try to put the form on every page. So if somebody happens to be searching some of these services at 9:00 at night, they probably realize that someone's not going to be there to answer their call. So they fill out the form submission, and I try to make sure that that's there. And then if, for whatever design reason, the customer may not want that, then you drive them to that contact us page.
Right.
But then you just have to make sure that the technical pieces are in place so that all the tracking can move with that person as they go from page to page on the website.
Right.
Because you want to, if they click into, say if they click into your landing page that focuses on shades, but then for whatever reason they decide to get a retractable patio cover and they've clicked around your website for a couple minutes, you want to make sure you still know where that came from initially. And then when they go to fill out your form, you want to keep track of all that. So all those pieces have to be in place from the standpoint of, you're telling Google where all this data is, and then you're retaining the important pieces either on your website or in that call tracking tool that you may use on the back end. And then besides that, then of course it's having the ideal scenario is to make sure that your ads line up with the content of the landing page.
Right.
So, most clients have several products. So you want to make sure that there's several pages and each page kind of specializes. You want to, give them opportunity to say, oh, hey, by the way, we do this and this and this other thing too, if you want to click over and check them out. But this page focuses on this idea. And then your Google ad will also focus on that idea. So that way there's a good level of synchronicity between the two. And Google even gives you bonus points for that, right? Your Google ad score actually affects how often they'll see your ad. And it actually can affect the bid price that you're able to achieve based on how well your ad lines up with the content on your website. So it's a very important piece.
Use landing pages, not just your generic homepage, because that's probably the biggest gripe I've ever seen with people trying to run their own ads is they don't understand that you need to be topical to where you're pointing your ads to, right?
Definitely. And Google gives you opportunity. You can have one campaign. You can tell them, hey, all right, I got $50 a day to invest in Google ads. And in that, you can have several different groups of ads, and then you can have several different kinds of ads within it. And Google will just serve them all up depending on what people are searching for. So you can really get very
granular.
Very granular. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Very granular in how you're doing your ads to line up with your product mix. So, sometimes people say, hey, Craig, and the way I do it, I'm very transparent. I don't have a bucket that I have asked my customer to give me money and I will put some of it in Google and keep the rest. I set it up so they're paying Google directly, and then they're paying me for my time that I invest. So I give them an itemization of here's what I did on this date, and this is what happened. Pretty much they're looking at the bottom line saying, okay, well, how much do I have to pay you? So, that kind of factors in. It's like, well, if you're going to spend $1,000 a month, then I ought to spend X amount of time in a given month. And they might say, well, you don't need to just do an hour. Like, okay, well, I can only do so much in an hour a month. Right. And so that's going to put some limitation on how detailed I can get. So, some campaigns may not be as effective, but they can still yield some results and maybe people are happy with that. I don't know. That's always the interesting thing is trying to balance, because Google is always, they're calling me saying, hey, this campaign's performing really well. You should raise the budget. I'm like, hey, yeah, okay, great. Well, it's not my budget to raise, dude. So let me get my client on the line and see if they're inclined to do that. So
I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to ask you on that because, one of the things being marketeers, and we talk to our clients all the time. You talk to your clients and, we're always trying to explain to the client that, it's a, how to say this, it's not instantaneous. It takes time to hone, to twist and I won't say to mold the audience that you're looking for and find the right things that work. Keyword, and they always say, well, I paid you X amount, so you did so many hours and I got no calls or I didn't see anybody clicking, so how do you approach your clients now that you mentioned that, where you say to them, okay, in the beginning, this is what I suggest, because we need to get the ball rolling. And once we got the ball rolling and we're getting results, then we can take that and we can fine tune it. We can do A/B testing. Those who don't know, you can do versions of the same ad, which is and shoot them out there and see which ones you're getting a better response from. So it's A versus B. So maybe you can give a little bit of information on that.
Yeah, like I think sometimes it is just a good port to start out small and then build on it. I had a client come to me this year with a new idea in the legal realm, and it's a new thing that people have to worry about for this year. So he had this whole campaign. He says, I want to spend $5,000 a month on this. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. That's probably going to get somewhere. Let's not start with $5,000 on day one, because let's start out small and see how much we need to spend to get there. Because Google will tell it. Google's very good about giving us feedback on, how far you want to go. Like even in his instance, this particular product isn't just for only Texas; it's for the whole country. And so he said, okay, well, let's start with Texas and the states that touch Texas. That's a pretty big area. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we said, okay, there's the area. Here's our keywords. Here's our budget. And then we can say, okay, is Google spending that budget every day? Yes. And then the other number they give us is, how much are you missing out on because of limitations with the budget? So they're actually telling us that we could have shown your ad a certain percentage more, but we ran out of money. So that's a very valuable. So when I'm preparing, I just kind of usually do a monthly summary for folks. I say, hey, here's what we spent. Here's what the average cost was per click. Here's what the average cost was per conversion. And here's essentially the missed opportunity. And so that's where we can say, okay, well, maybe we need to crank it up by 20% and see if we can capture another few conversions, which should hopefully turn into sales for you. So it should make economic sense to the point that they have people that can make the appointments, right? So, I mean, that's where the problem becomes, is if they don't have crews to do the work, then they don't want to be getting all these leads in that go to waste. So that's where the balancing act is to be found.
And that's true. So I like a couple of things that you were saying there. Number one, don't immediately just go to spend the entire bankroll, right? And there's a thing that I know we do on our side as well, which is we know there's a up-ramping, I guess, time period in a new ad campaign where you're not guaranteed to be getting results. It's nice when you're fine-tuned from day one, but that doesn't always happen. Especially with new keywords, testing out new campaigns, you really got to switch things around. Update your homepage, or not homepage, your landing page. You let's say you'll check your analytics data, you check your Hotjar. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's like a heat map on your website that tells you where people are clicking, where they're visiting, how far they scroll, right? So there's a lot of different things that you're checking out and optimizing over time. So I do have a question here for your particular clients and your campaigns. One of the things that I know a lot of people that hire agencies to run their ads, they think that once they're set up and they have their campaign going and they're getting some results, that they can immediately kind of let them go, right? They're like, it's already running itself, it's set up, I don't need you anymore. Now, what's your case against that, right? Because we all know there's key reasons why you don't want to just stop having somebody managing those, but clients don't always know that. So could you go through your rationale behind why, even if you have a good, well-oiled campaign running, why there's a reason that it's actually well-oiled right now and continuing to run well for now?
Right, for now. Well, because the one thing is that, the other person in this whole mix that wants to make more money is Google. So yep. Google is very profit-oriented. And so what does that mean? Well, they're not going to be satisfied with the status quo either. So they're constantly tinkering with their own tools, and they're creating new and different ways to try to reach out to your customers. And so it's important for them to communicate with us as the agency to say, hey, we've got this new tool, or now the latest thing is, okay, we've got this Performance Max type of ad that does different things a little differently. Now they said, oh, well, we've got this demand gen that appears just on YouTube results, and it's totally different from the way it was a few years ago. Because I said, I tried that demand gen a while ago and it didn't really work. It's like, oh, well, it's totally new. It's revamped in the last 6 months. I'm like, okay. So, so it's one of those things where it's important to kind of stay abreast of what's happening. And then not that it necessarily derails what you've built, but as all these new things keep happening, it does change the way that the search results appear on Google's page. They're constantly tinkering with like the local service ads, the premium ads that appear right at the top, right? So those are for defined industries, but they're always adding in more. And now they're going to put those into the map results instead of it just being at the top. Or maybe they're going to have it in both places. They're going to probably have it at the top and in the map results. Mm-hmm. And so then that kind of changes the way people's behavior is going to be on their phone. Because people always say, oh, I don't click on the ads. And then Google will tell you, well, we know, and it's like, I forget what percentage they throw out, but it's more than half. I would say it's more like 2/3 of every click is on an ad click. And I'm like, okay, I mean, is it true? I don't know. I don't know if we could ever validate that, but certainly seems like it's possible. So to me, that's the biggest thing. But then also there's just the cyclical nature of your business that I don't know that everybody's in tune with, right? So I'm working on one right now where they're not just doing shades, but they're actually doing the whole patio build out. And here in Texas, it's July. It's going to be, it's actually cool this week. It's only in the 90s. Next week, it's going to be in 100 for 5 days. So I don't know that people are so worried about updating their patio, right? Doing the patio stuff is normally something you think about from March to May. So I think their campaign had a lot more activity back then, and then not so much now. And we just need to be. Sometimes you can't fix that, right? That's just the way that it works. But so
seasonality.
We need to make sure that we've got the tools in place to measure that, so that we know, okay, is it our campaign that's not performing, or is there just not the people searching for it right now, or what different things could we search for? Maybe we need to focus on people with patios that want to add a shade. That could be just a part of the business, perhaps. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of really understanding, because I don't know that everybody would love to have no seasonality in their business, but it really affects more businesses than because even here the weather changes. It's not like it's the same cuts. I suppose in San Diego maybe you don't have to worry about seasonality, but most other places have a lot of varying things happening in their weather systems.
Yeah, well, and then you've got other types of examples. So not even just the actual physical seasons, the 4 seasons type of thing. You actually have different times of the year that certain services are good. For example, your taxes, they're due April 15th, right?
Yep.
So that means the search volume for tax accountants goes up tremendously starting from January until April, right? So does the cost of those ads during that time as well. So, if you're running the ad campaigns for, let's say an accountant or somebody that does taxes, right? There's a seasonality to when you run certain keywords as well. So this is why I like to bring it up, because a lot of clients don't understand that, like, PPC is not set it and forget it. PPC is something that, like if it's running well and you don't have complaints, it's not because the PPC managers are doing nothing on a monthly basis. It's quite literally because they're in the background tinkering, adjusting things to make sure that you are staying well, your campaign is running well throughout the year. And, it's one of those things where I like to point that out, because clients don't understand there's a value to monthly management, right? It's not just set it, forget it, because I've had clients approach me like, hey, could you just set up this campaign and then I'll run it from there? Sure, but you're not going to get the results that you want.
Right.
Right. And don't expect any great results in the first 1 to 3 months, because that's you're cycling up your ads campaigns. You're seeing what's working. Google is seeing what's working on your campaign. It is a learning period on your account. Especially if you're using broad match or phrase match. Exact match is where you end up switching once you figure out your keywords. But when you're in those two, like, gosh, good luck. You have so much wastage. I know we had an example, actually. We have a law firm that we're running ad campaigns for. And for example, the keyword, let's say divorce attorney, right? On broad match, you would think, oh, it's just variations of divorce attorney. But it's not. Google will start serving it to XYZ attorney, XY, this attorney name, this attorney name. Now all of a sudden your ads are being served on your competitors' keywords, and you had no idea. And now you're starting to receive calls from, some confused client that's trying to reach that law firm, not you, and they're confusing your staff on the, on the phone, and it happens. But people just don't understand. Like, this is what happens if you don't actually manage your ad campaigns and have a good ads manager that tracks and listens and even asks you for feedback on what's actually happening. So,
I'll add to that is your competitors, guess what? They're also using those keywords. So, there's only a set amount of keywords that everybody is looking into and trying to optimize. So when you have a professional who knows what they're doing, they're constantly looking for those words, and then they're doing and they're also looking at what we call the negative keywords and going out and sometimes, Google will throw in all those negative keywords and we're going to go in there and filter them all out because Google doesn't know. It's also trying to learn and make suggestions.
Yeah. And Google will literally show whatever's working, whatever people are actually clicking on, they will show. It's a perfect example of, say free attorney, South Florida, right? Oh, you better bet your butt you're getting a lot of clicks on that. But is that relevant to you? Is that relevant to you as a law firm? Right. And do you want those clients? If the answer is no, you need someone that actually understands that should be a negative keyword. And you got to make sure every variation of that keyword or that keyword set is not in your campaign. So
right. No free, no cheap. DIY is questionable whether they really think that they're going to do it themselves or not.
Best price.
Oh yeah. So so then we're kind of we've been talking about a little bit of everything here. So we've talked about the website, what goes into the actual landing page, website, or whatever you're using for the campaign. Talked about a little bit on the conversion tracking, what you're using, assigning values to different types of conversions, right? Different call to actions. And then there's one more piece that I wanted to be able to talk about. It's in regards to your ad spend. So like determining what your ad spend should be for different industries and determining, okay, what is appropriate for each industry at the minimal, because that's the one thing, like everybody thinks like, oh, if I just put in $200-300 on ad spend, that should be sufficient, right? Because maybe that's all they can afford. But does it make sense for them to do, $200-300 budget? Right. So can you tell us your approach to kind of determining that budget for a client up front and deciding whether or not it's appropriate for you even to take that client on, knowing what their maximum budget would be?
Yeah, I haven't gotten too far down and that road with folks. I mean, generally I had an interesting call with somebody who wanted to kind of partner up with me, and that was their big pitches. Well, we're going to provide you with this tool that's going to make it easy to come up with this budget to recommend to the client. I'm like, well, that's all well and good, but most of the time it doesn't work that way. I can't just roll up to every client and say, well, you should be spending $4,000 a month on this. Most customers are going to say, that's not how this is going to roll. I'm going to give you a number and you're going to make the most of that number. So, you're right. It's like, well, what is too small of a number? So, my basic premise is to start out with, it's like, well, if it's a small enough company, you could even throw $500 at Google Ads and it can be beneficial. Mm-hmm. So I'll just I'll spend an appropriate amount of time managing that size of an account, right? You don't want to spend several hours managing that because then you're going to end up spending as much managing it as it is in the spend. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that the amount of management time you attach to it is appropriate. Yeah. So to me, it is a matter of starting out with, okay, you want to start out with 500, that's fine. Now let's focus on that. What are we missing out on? If that number comes back that says, your impression share, your missing impression share based on budget, if it's like 75%, you're way under budget for what the opportunities are here. So we need to either rein in the locations that you're targeting, or we need to increase the budget if it's being effective, right? If you're able to get these leads and turn them into appointments and sales.
But would you say that some of that is also dictated by the keyword research up front? Because you'll be able to estimate, the average cost per keyword. Like for example, attorneys. Jesus, a lot of attorney keywords are it could be $1 for the click, and it could be $500 for a click, depending on what industry.
Right. Divorce attorney Fort Worth is definitely going to cost somebody a couple $100. The other one that's always expensive is water damage restoration. Oh, that one is because those jobs are huge, right? Yeah. So I guess, so you're right. So that was the other piece of this that I guess we haven't really discussed. So what I will often do is I will say, I will use the keyword planner within Google and say, okay, show me the top 100 keywords and let's focus on that. And then we'll use their website, we'll use their product mix, will come up with those keywords, and then Google will actually give me back and say, here's what the average cost per click is over time. And so, they won't always know that cost per conversion. That's a bit different because it's always going to be based on, but at least we can say, okay, here's what the cost per click is. So I will often do that and say, because they usually give us a low and a high. And so I'll say, okay, here's the potential budget you could spend. So if you're going to give me $500, here's the number of clicks you could anticipate. And then we would have to see later, how many of those clicks does it take to get a conversion? But at least I can give them an idea of to say, here's the budget and here's the range of clicks that we could come to expect.
And at that point, you've got the funnel, like the funnel approach to your conversions. It costs you XYZ to get this many clicks. Out of those clicks, you're going to get realistically from your website XYZ number of form submissions or calls, whatever else. From those people, you got your further break it down to a smaller part of the funnel, which is how many people actually converted or actually showed up to an appointment. And then from those people that showed up to the appointment, how many people did you actually sell? And you'll slowly watch that number diminish.
Right.
And I think what's the average is like between the average conversion rate for PPC ads is like between 1% to 3%, something around there. So it's like, if your sample size of people coming in, whatever, say you're going to get 100 clicks, I expect 1% to 3% of that to maybe convert, maybe. And that conversion part is actually dependent on you, not the PPC manager.
Nope.
So,
that was the only time I really had a campaign that just fell flat. And the guy, he poured concrete pads for various, for driveways, for patios, for whatever the need was. And he was convinced that he needed to do Google ads, but he didn't answer the phone. They just, he just went to so he just figured that people were going to be going on Google ads, clicking on his ad, leave him a message, and he can call them back within the next day. I'm like, dude, that's not going to work. You need to be able to respond to these people. So if you can't do it, we need to get your wife involved. We need to get somebody else involved to answer the phone, because if they don't answer the phone, they're just going to move on to the next person. They're not going to, they might leave you a message and you might be able to call them back and get an opportunity depending on how many people are in your area doing the same sort of work. But even if there's 5 people that are doing concrete slabs in your area, you got to worry about those other 4 guys and who are they get to answer the phone. So that was
what
one.
Are they going to quote? What are they going to quote too?
So that's one that blew up. He gave it a month's time. Nothing happened in a month and he was done. I'm like, well, shame on me for not really. So I kind of put it to myself to vet them a little more and say, so I actually tested out. I'm like, okay, I'm testing your phone number and I'm calling them up. And if I get their voicemail, I'm like, okay, how long is it going to take for you to call me back? And we'll see.
I agree with you. So one more thing for the audience to really understand about PPC ads is the following. The quality or the type of lead that comes in is not like a referral that's going to be willing for you to respond the next day or something like that. These people want answers now, or they want a quote now. They are on the lookout. So if you cannot give them that instant satisfaction or instant gratification, they're moving on to the next one in line. And guess what? There's plenty of other options in that search result. Mm-hmm. So if you are not set up for sales, right, to properly handle sales calls, I usually don't recommend clients to even try to do PPC until they figure out their sales process. I mean, if you can't call a lead back or answer the phone when they call you, call them back within 3 minutes to 5 minutes maximum, I guarantee you they're already on the phone with one of your competitors, and they're probably already getting somebody to come out soon. So you got a short window of time.
Yeah, right? I mean, I'll even jump in there and say, I know we're all members of BNI. All those who don't know, there's Business Networking International. It's a shameless plug for them. We all enjoy working with our BNI chapters. He says, if my phone rings twice, I'm angry at myself. It must ring once before I pick it up. He's like, and you never not pick up my phone. He's like, you can call me at 11 o'clock at night and I'll pick up my phone. And he's like, and you can call me at 5 a.m. in the morning and I'll pick up my phone. He's like, anybody who calls my business line, I pick up immediately. I'm ready to go. And that's that. He lives by that model. That's his thing.
Yeah. But so definitely, like, you got to have a commitment level towards that advertising. Because, if you're not committed to actually servicing these people, they're not going to stay with you. And you're not going to get any results from your PPC ad campaigns.
Or as they were saying, we'll bring the horse to the water.
Yeah, but you can't make a drink.
Right. And Google does well with, you could restrict when your ad appears to the hours that you're able to take a call. Absolutely. So that's a real nice feature. If you want to just focus on, like, say you're your success rate with form submissions is super low. So which some people say, I have a form on my website, but it never really turns into anything. So then I say, okay, well, let's focus from 8 to 5 then, but just make sure. So we'll restrict the ad to only appear 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Just make sure you're answering that phone. Yeah. So yeah, it's just the ones that do have some products do have a level of success with getting that form submission that somebody's looking at 3 a.m. They fill out the form and they can get a call back the next day. That works for some services and products. So then you can run the ads 24/7, but Google gives you can really fine tune when those ads appear, which makes it very user friendly in terms of having it aligned with your business.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the key takeaways is talk to a professional. One of the things about this podcast is, we love bringing people who are professionals at what they do and really get down to the granular part of it, the ones and zeros. And that's what we enjoy about what we do. We enjoy shall we say, the challenge of making this happen for our clients. But talk to the professional. That's why we're here.
Yeah, for sure. I would say this: are PPC ads out of reach for the average consumer to try to do it themselves? I would say no. Especially you got YouTube University and all this and that. But the problem is this: you catching up to speed on your ad campaign is going to cost you money, right? The reason that people like Craig have success with doing this well for their clients is not because they just woke up one day and they're really good at it. It's because they spent years trying and testing out different approaches, different types of ads, different text models, learning about keyword research. There's so many components of it that, like, sure, could you learn it and can you do it yourself? Yes. But are you going to do it like that? Definitely not. That's why, you got to figure out what is your time worth and how much are you willing to invest into your education of it. And when I say invest, into your mistakes, that is. Right?
Trial and errors.
Yeah, figure out, does that make sense to hire somebody? And if it does, definitely hire somebody like Craig. If not, then sure, you can try it yourself. I'm never above telling someone to do it if you can, especially if you have a lower budget. But definitely spend the time to understand it before you just jump in. Because that's how you have no idea how many clients I've met that came to me for just general marketing consulting. And they'll be like, well, I was trying PPC ads and they really didn't work for me. And I go, well, who was running them for you? Well, I was trying to do it myself. Oh, how long did you try to do that for? I tried it for like a week or two and, I didn't really see any traction. I'm just like, so you just discounted this whole possible avenue of advertising your business on the fact that you just weren't successful doing it DIY? So definitely, figure out what makes sense for you. But
it's like you own your own house and you spring a leak and
oh geez,
I can fix this, and you go there and you fix it. And guess what? Sometimes it works because you did it right, and sometimes it doesn't, and you spring a bigger leak. And then who do you end up calling? The professional.
And then spending more money to fix your problems.
Right.
So it's the same. It all rings true in the same thing. Go ahead, try, educate yourselves. Again, like I said, don't knock anybody, because you'll learn something. And you'll learn more about your company and your marketing ability on how the internet, it's one thing we run into business owners we talk to business owners all the time. They know their business, they know their product, but they don't know the internet. And they learn a lot from trying to do it themselves. But then speaking with professionals who know how the internet will react to certain things, how the internet is searchable, workable. And that's where we come in and we offer these resolutions which was a problem solving for them.
So now there's one last kind of piece, the PPC funnel, I would suppose. And not a lot of people utilize this tool, but it is available readily by Google. So everybody knows about the traditional, textual PPC ads, right? That just appear, in search results. But Google has a retargeting functionality, right? So based on people who did click your ad, who did perform a certain action on your website, it can retarget those IP addresses and follow them around across Google's ad network, right? And that ad network spans not just like text ads, but also banner ads and graphically visual ads, and I believe even YouTube ads, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh yeah, YouTube. They have ads that appear in Gmail. If you're a Gmail user, they will find you if you're connected to any Google property.
So tell us about that. Is that something that you oftentimes get to use for clients? And from my opinion, my understanding, and why when we like to use them is, not everybody's always ready to make that purchasing decision right then and there. Especially you've got window shoppers that do go to Google and they will click ads, right? So, but does that mean that if they're a window shopper that they're a bad lead? I don't know, right? It depends on if you have the ability to nurture them and to get them back into your pipeline. Because from what I understand, that retargeting is cheaper than initially trying to get that first time click, right? So tell us how you use it, and do you recommend it, and when do you recommend it?
I've used it some. It's just I have found that most of my clients, because they can see, and I guess that's probably the good and the bad of showing them, here's how many conversions you got and what the average cost per conversion was. Because the remarketing and retargeting campaigns don't often show all the conversions.
That's
because
true.
by the time that they've, are we always able to track those to the tracking number? Because when they've kind of gone through different phases, you hope that they can click through to the ad and to your, so we hope we can track them to the actual Google ad.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes a little bit more nebulous as to where the source was from that.
That's true.
So that's the challenging part. So to me, I think the retargeting ads are more valuable for larger budgets, right? So if someone is spending 10 grand a month on Google ads, that means they're running some pretty robust campaigns. Yeah. And it makes logical sense to say, okay, well, let's run this retargeting campaign for $750. That will kind of keep them in front of their nose for a few more times to try to recapture them. Yeah. Whereas, most of my customers are spending just a couple $1,000s a month at most. And so the retargeting campaign really hasn't captured enough opportunities to use them, take effect. Yeah, it's not as effective because there's just not as many people that they're going after to retarget. So yes, I definitely agree that it's a valuable piece of the puzzle, but I think it's more for larger users. Campaigns. Yeah.
Now I would agree with you on that. I like to bring it up for one main reason, and that is a lot of us like to focus on the initial acquisition, right? Getting that first time lead, getting that first click, whatever else. But what we don't think about is, we're focusing on 10% of that funnel, right? If you really break it down, 10% of the people that might click around, or maybe 1 to 3%, let's say, actually have the means of purchasing right then and there. But you're missing out on the rest of that 97% that showed interest but didn't quite convert. And you never know exactly the reasoning behind it. And oftentimes it's maybe they weren't ready, or maybe they were shopping around, they were just pricing things out. And if you don't stay top of mind, it's very difficult to ever reconvert them or get them back again if you don't stay in front of them. So, I think it is an important piece, but you're right. You do need a little bit more budget to allocate to it additionally.
Right. And then I'll just jump in here and throw in a little bit of the technical history behind that is Google keeps changing its algorithms and the way it functions. When they first started with this whole thing, it used to be called the tracking pixel. And it used to be just a little bit of snippet of code that you would put in different strategic places on the website. And that's how we tracked what was going on. We called this the tracking pixel. And we as marketeers and web designers, we used to go and generate 10, 20, 30 tracking pixels and go drop them across the internet where so we can do this retargeting and see how, run all these retargeting campaigns. And then, of course, Google got smart and they didn't want us doing these kind of things because we were able to see these retargeting ads. And that's why Google changes the algorithm. So that's a little bit behind what goes on there. But back in the day, I remember creating those long lists of tracking pixels on Google Analytics accounts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've gone through quite a bit today, and I definitely think we got some real gems as far as recommendations and explanations on the different aspects of a PPC ad campaign for the everyday potential client, right? So now is that moment for you to kind of give yourself that shameless plug. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you? Because you're obviously very knowledgeable. You understand your markets. You know what you're doing. So if anybody that is looking to work with you from listening on this podcast, how can they get in touch with you?
So I guess the couple ways that, right, my website is drkmstrategies.com, and that's our company website. I've got my simple landing page set up at craigbackus.com. So then that page will get you, and it's got links to all my different areas. I think the one that I use the most for, especially for business, is LinkedIn. So I've got a robust profile set up in LinkedIn. I think if you put in Craig Backus Fort Worth, my LinkedIn profile should come up first or second. So that's probably the easiest way. And then I've got my email address and phone number is either at craigbackus.com or right on there on my LinkedIn profile.
Amazing.
And if anybody didn't get all that, they can reach out to us. We'd be very happy to put you in contact with Craig.
Yep, of course. Well, Craig, we really appreciate all of your insights and for joining us today. And do you have any final words or final thoughts for the audience?
Any final words? I keep moving forward.
Okay.
That's my mantra. I try to instill in my business network and my children. Stuff is going to happen, but just keep moving forward and take what you've learned and make the most of it.
That sounds like just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Basically, it is. I have a lot of respect for Dory.
And that comes from a champion.
Paperboy. Yeah,
that's right.
So, there you go. Right. It goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to there. The drive to get better and do better.
All right. So, well, we thank everybody who is listening to our podcast. We encourage you all to like, subscribe, follow, and comment. Let us know what you want to learn about. And other than that, we thank you again for your time, Craig, and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Sounds great. Yep. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Learn a lot.
Bye.